Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are out there in the world. It's time for another episode of the SoundTraxx Soundbites podcast. This is Train Talk for Milepost 141. This is George.
Tom Austin.
And we're coming to you from the SoundTraxx offices. You just got back from vacation, so I hope you had a good time. I know you went to go down to see the Cubbies.
I did, yeah. They got beat.
Yeah.
They're getting beat today again. So.
Oh, well.
Well, you were used to that as Cub fans. It was hot in Arizona.
Yeah.
92 degrees. And for March, they even said down there it was hot.
Yeah.
And then went to Moab, Soldier Summit, and a couple other places.
Oh, that's cool. Soldier Summit's a really nice.
It is.
That's a great.
Helper, Utah, which is along the way. So Soldier Summit is on at the top of the hill.
Yep.
And looking for any remnants of the Utah Railway and see stuff like that. Coal trains, which everybody knows. Like I love those.
Oh yeah, who doesn't?
Right. Coal trains are great. So yeah, it's good.
I heard Matt Gentry doesn't like coal trains though.
Oh, Matt, we got to talk to him. Maybe
we got to get him on board with coal trains.
I think there's a couple other guys out there in the hobby too, and a couple of them are like Ed Dressel's one of our friends.
Yep,
he's a big coal train guy. And so is Brian Bates.
Yeah,
but Matt I think's got even me and those guys beat. I think
probably
Matt. And Matt's got that cool. He's rocking that cool hairdo these days.
There you go.
He could front CCR with that hairdo.
There you go. But anyway, well, that's cool, though. That's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
There's some really cool places out there. And I'm trying to think. I think my friend Jerry Day, he likes to go out to Balancing Rock Cafe. I don't know if you got the chance to eat at that one at Helper.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
We didn't stop there. We didn't. I forget which one it was, but it wasn't that one.
Yeah, there was one of those out there. I think it was Balancing Rock. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But he really talked highly of it. He says the cornbread is like the best.
I'll try it because this was like a scouting trip just to get the lay of the land, and it's really not that far of a trip.
No.
It's 4 hours up to from Cortez up there, but it's only 2 hours to Moab. So it's not bad at all.
No, it's not. And did you catch any trains? Of course, that's the big
question.
There
was some. Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the whole reason for it.
Right. They still run manned helpers up on Soldier Summit too, so that's what was interesting.
It's really cool. Like I said, it's nice for people like us that like the long trains. And I can remember the MP cars that we have, the Exactro cars went through on trains and stuff. So when the Rio Grande I think went through there too, right? So so it was neat. Yeah, it's a neat trip. And then like I said, the Cubs were great. They looked good until the bottom of ninth, but that's that's normal.
That's good.
It's normal.
I did my best to hold the fort down while you were gone.
Appreciate that.
And then we did do a recording with the folks at Spring Creek Model Train, so they said to tell you hi.
Oh, great. Great shop, great people, and one of our best.
Yeah, there you go.
Hobby.
So it looks like, I was so excited because you were going to bring your Ziegler Cole finished.
Yes.
Your Ziegler train was finished.
Yeah.
And you don't have it with you.
I forgot it today. I meant to bring it, and I brought I was going to bring them both. This is the next project, one of the next ones. This is an Atlas U23B.
Okay.
And it's going to be probably MOPAC 4510 or 4512, one of the two, because it's got the FB2 trucks. This is one of the engines is kind of nostalgic to me. It kind of goes along with your Rehab My Loco series.
Yeah.
This is a 1997 vintage engine, but it's really, to me, still holds its own with everything out there today. Atlas, of course, has just a wonderful drive.
Oh yeah.
And I remember this is I would call one of the first, Kato-esque or high quality drive engines when I got them in 97, 98. But this is good for like up to MOPAC like 4520, I think, or 4521. Yeah. Because it has the door latches on the top and the bottom, whereas the rest of the MP U23Bs had the centered door latch.
Okay.
In Atlas, it'd be awesome if Atlas would eventually do that, and who knows, they might. But this will get to your basic detailing. It's going to get the Paul Fredriconi, the detailed West air tanks, air reservoirs underneath it.
Yep.
A few other subtle details. There's not much on a GE, but it will also get the KV models.
Yes, that really does add a lot.
Yeah, this you can do a lot with paint and add some depth there, but I'm going to use KV's grill and radiator core for this, and then of course maybe I don't know if I'll kick the door open on this one or not, but because it doesn't really lend itself for an interior with that block in there. Of course, this will get 2 scale sound system speakers, and I mean I don't know if JT watches this too much or not, but I talked to JT Burke about it, and now he has one that fits up here, or one of these places, and you put a Decoder Buddy Mini in here, or the V5, and he has one that just drops in. But what I did is I'm going to use a Mini, and I'm going to put one of each. And all I did is I just ground this down, and then put a piece of styrene. Is what I'll do is put a piece of styrene, so that way both the tabs will sit right on the motor, and you'll have a front and rear speaker setup. And that way, with the decoder in there, which will be a 21-pin, SoundTraxx, Blunami, or Tsunami2, either one, they are 1 watt, or 1 amp, but 2 watts of speaker power. So it's going to get you that JT's 1.5 and whatever it is peak. Yep. But anyway, it'll definitely get me over that threshold I want, and you get that good low end GE chug sound.
Absolutely.
And again, these are some of my favorite engines. I think you can find them out there. There seems to be a glut of them on eBay right now, but I'm happy to see that because I like the Undecks. I love this drive with that huge motor, which draws less than an amp, of course. Yep. And it's just a great model still to this day, to me anyway. But
I got a couple GEs on the workbench too, so if you haven't placed your KV models order, let me know and I'll piggyback on with you.
Sounds good, yeah.
Because I got a couple that I want to do too.
Yeah, he does really good stuff. I'll probably just use the Atlas handrails, so I think they look just fine. I will probably replace the cut levers on it, put a different cut lever, but that's pretty much it. And then cut out the chain and just drill those out and put your stanchion across there, a piece of styrene, 15 thousandths, and you're done. And then she'll get the standard Jinx blue paint.
Yep.
And
there you go.
We'll change the air horn, and then we're cooking.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be a good looking model when you're done.
Yeah.
I just saw this and it's bugging me, so I'm going to fix it because I apparently missed.
Oh yeah.
When I plugged this in, I missed the rail joiner, so it was
I did
loose.
that at a show in Train Fest. And I was like, "What's going on with that engine?" And I was like, that's my fault.
My fault.
Yeah.
I just saw it, and because I'm looking here, and I just caught it. And when something's irregular and your eye catches it, you can't unsee it now.
Yeah.
So I had to fix that.
We were running the train, like that looks weird. I'm like, that's because I missed a joint up there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's see.
We got here.
I got another MOPAC engine. I know, no surprise, right?
Right.
I just realized I forgot to pull my phone out here to connect, but I hadn't connected to it yet. But this is the latest in my additions. It's another GP38, and I'm going to screen record now in 3, 2, 1, so that way the video will match up.
Right.
But anyway, it's another one of the Proto 2000s GP38s that they did in their series. This was in Lifelike. And they did some really cool things. That, we talked about this. The Proto 2000 series actually was really far ahead.
You were.
By a long shot. And this has the walkway textures. It has the see-through grills, or the see-through steps. It's got all the level of detail. One of the other things is that the fan spacing varies based on which model. The intake grills matter.
Yep.
They match up.
The path box.
Yep, and it's got the angled filter box there.
Yep.
And I was real happy with the way this turned out, and I didn't have to do much to it, quite frankly.
No, it's beautiful.
I feel like I added the bell was detailed west, another, and then these arresters were mine.
Yep.
But other than that, it pretty much matched.
Yeah.
So
they kind of were the precursor to our, like you said, our Genesis and Rapido and all those road number specific. That,
very much so.
You could pretty much take one of these, especially if you got an undeck, and if you got the super undeck with all the versions to it, you can make any version on the MOPAC roster, like you said, because some of them had this, some of them had the solid handrail. Yeah, I mean these are just. The other thing you guys out there in the hobby that know, and George knows, I mean, you get 4 or 5 of these Protos. They're so heavy, you could pull your vehicle with them. I mean, they'll pull anything. Those things they'll pull their weight. They'll hold their own.
Well, that's the thing is I noticed that they're packed full of weight, but the problem with that is, of course, that means there's no room for anything inside.
Right.
They've got no room for a speaker, no room for any of that other stuff. It's literally just packed up inside of here.
Right.
And so what the problem is that in order to make room for a decoder, you kind of have to do some milling and cutting.
Right.
And so I personally don't have a milling machine. I know you just recently got one. So this was years ago. I had a friend of mine to cut a handful of these because I ended up somehow with 7 of these models.
Yeah.
And so this is the second, and I just pulled 2 of them out of the box, ready to upgrade now.
Yeah.
2 more that I'll be doing over the next little bit. But one of the other cool things about it was like the class lights were actually already drilled.
Yeah.
And they had a clear lens in them.
Yep.
The number boards are already clear lens.
Yep.
And the way these were designed, you had the headlight light bulb, then you had a little shield, and then you had the number board light that was behind
Right.
it. This was a 1.5 volt light, but then this one was a 3 volt light.
Right.
And so it was immediately dimmer
Right.
than the headlights, and so it's already broken out. And then you've already got the holes drilled for the class lights. It's like the only thing you have to do is add the ground truck lights,
Right.
and you're pretty much done. So
And you got a great mechanism to go with it. And
Yeah.
and again, the aesthetics of it. I mean, the fit and finish when you're done with them, and at least came like this. They were just way ahead of their time. You're right.
Yep. So
Great engines.
I did put the magnetic air hoses on it. One of the
yeah.
things about this particular one is the model came with the precast MU cable that was in like that horseshoe looking, or that W shape or whatever, where it's held up with the chain.
Right.
Well, because I wanted to be accurate, but also be able to use the magnetic air hose or the magnetic MU cables, I just went ahead and did it. So underneath there's actually a wire brass hook that I'm cut, and it sits under there, and so it's holding it. So that's actually just one of the North American railcar MU cables that's just kind of squished under there, so I can move it around and it becomes functional.
Yeah, that's really cool. Those things are great.
So
I like the MU, the train line.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference, especially when you run the train. Especially when you get down rail fast.
Yes.
It just adds to the
It
realism.
really just adds that extra level.
It really does.
And so, as you know, I think I told you, I've done all those MU cables on my entire fleet on the layout. I'm talking not just locomotives, all the cars, everything. Right. And we had our first op session this past week. I had a friend coming through town and said, "Hey, we want to come run trains." Okay.
Yeah.
So I threw the layout up really quickly, and
had great weather for it.
And we had great weather for it,
Yeah.
but anyway, it came over, and there was the first one, or the second one, I guess I should say, with all the MU cables, and everything ran great. Nobody had any problems, and they even noticed, because it was a handful of the DNS guys.
Yeah.
And they were, so they all came over, and they were noticing, and it was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. So it really adds. But anyway, this is a Blunami 21 pin, and getting back to, so what I had done was I had actually milled across the top of the weight to get down to where the motor was, to where I'm just above the motor mechanism. So when I put the decoder down, it's above the motor. And then down over here where the fans are, I'd actually cut down a little bit and then put the 2 cube speakers over there under the long hood. So the speakers are just underneath the radiator fans and the and the decoder's in there. Now, there were 2 things I ran into issues with this particular model. Number one is because this thing has been sitting a while. This is a tale for those of you guys out there that start rehabbing some of these old models. Sometimes the grease seizes.
Yep.
It becomes like gel or
glue,
concrete.
Yeah.
And so what you have to do is you have to take that gearing apart completely, clean it out, and take all of that out.
Right.
And put it all back together. And so when I did that, I put it together, and I used that PBL synthetic gear grease. We've talked about. I used it in my Rehab, my Loco series. So be sure to check out that on YouTube. But anyway, I was happy with it. The other issue I had was, for whatever reason, and I think it's the engineer's side or the fireman's side on the rear, one of the class lights is out. And if I remember correctly, and this is what bothers me, right? It didn't work, so I was like, that kind of aggravates me. Well, I'll just fix it.
Right.
And so I fixed it, replaced it, put it back, and it still didn't work. And so now I've got it. I'm going to live with it. So one of the class lights is out on the back of the long hood.
I've seen them. I've seen MP engines though in the past. In the wild that had that affliction.
That's why I'm not super worried about it, but it just annoys me when it doesn't work.
It's got the perfect weather on it. She looks like she's worked. So it happens. When they're out working on the line, things go out. They don't have time to get back to the shop.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, I've got this here. I've got my screen pulled up. So we got our headlight here, and then we got our front class lights, and then the front number boards. And one of the things I did on my models is when I turn on the front number boards, it also turns on the ground truck lights.
Right.
Trying to be consistent. I'll probably separate that because I've got, as you can see on the screen here, I've got a whole bunch of empty slots, so I'll probably break that out at some point. But right now, it's on a separate function, but it does come on with the front number boards.
It's convenient.
Especially since most of the time they ran this way.
Right.
The only time it would really be afflicting is if I'm running long hood forward by itself. But usually, and like you've been over, now that I've got more layout space, we operate 2 locomotives back to back.
Right.
So it becomes somewhat irrelevant. But anyway, so I'm going to turn the front ones off, and then I'm going to turn on my rear headlight, and hopefully you guys can see that in the second camera there. And then I've got the rear class lights. No, it was the engineer side. So it's this side over here is the one that's extinguished. And then the rear number boards comes on. So that way I'm proper display. This is extra 2138,
right? Right.
East, whatever you want to call it. Facing east right now if I was running long hood forward.
Right.
As we're sitting. But, of course, we've got that beautiful SoundTraxx sound in it. And as you may have noticed, I've got the headlight, and it's non-directionally based. My lights, I have the 0 turns on the headlight, and the function 28 turns on the rear light. Because in the real world, the engineer didn't turn off the headlight and then turn on the backup light to make a switching move.
Right.
So all of my lights are non-directional, so you just have to pay attention to where you're at and what the display is.
Right.
So if you're switching, you're still going to have your headlight on because you're still occupied. It's not like you're going to turn on your backup light. But directional lights are so entrenched in our hobby because, if you look back, the days of DC, right? Yeah. You talk about any of our diesel locomotives, in order to have the headlight displayed on the front of direction of travel, you would have diodes like you have right here.
Yep.
These diodes would then dictate which light was on based on direction.
Right. Yep.
But then now that we have decoders, there's so many people that have it's directional lights and they just don't know any different, quite frankly.
Right.
And so that's great, and that's how our decoders come defaulted. But the digital age especially gives us the ability to accurately, or more accurately, I should say, model the actual real world.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and fire this guy up, and we'll start moving along. Nice, smooth, slow mechanism. That's speed step 2. We can go down to speed step 1. You can see it's a nice, smooth, slow mechanism. I'm going to turn off the bell because I'm not selling ice cream.
Right.
And this is what's really cool is you can actually go into half speeds, which is, basically speed step 1/2.
Right.
You can see it's still running nice and smooth. It's almost difficult to see it's running.
Yeah, it's just a great mechanism, and the Blunami makes it even better.
Yeah, and all of the functionality can be done right here on the phone, and that's one of my biggest things. And so when I had the op session over, I had 3 trains running at any time. There's a yard switcher and 2 trains out on the line, and the yard switcher guy, he insisted on using a throttle, which is great. It's a Tsunami2 decoder.
Right.
So he had the ProCab throttle in his hand.
Right.
And then meanwhile the other crews were using their Blunami app.
A lot easier.
Yeah. I had one kid that was visiting in town with one of his friends, Kyle, and Peyton worked for the IC. But he was one of the first furloughed or laid off because of stuff. But he was over. He had never heard that Blunami was even a thing, and he was done. He was like, "That is freaking cool."
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really nice. And as a real railroader, he had a lot of fun because with using the figures on the layout that I do, he was like, "Oh wow, this is really, man, this was so much fun." So
yeah, the guy flagging it and had all
absolutely
that stuff, throwing the switch.
Yep, absolutely. So we had a good time. We'll go ahead and get it backed up here.
Yeah, those things ran great.
And I've got a lot of momentum into it now, so you can kind of see I'm throttling up, and you're hearing the diesel engine notching up. And then when I cut the throttle, you hear it drop down, but then it's coasting.
Right.
So that leads us into the next topic.
Right.
You want to start?
Dynamic DigitalExhaust.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of questions about it. There's a lot of things you can adjust on that, and the calibration is relatively simple, especially on a Blunami. Blunami, it's on the app, and you just hit calibrate, and it does it for you. Just make sure you got some track or some rollers. Track's probably better.
Track is going to be better
because it's going to actually roll, and it's actually going to get some rolling resistance and things that it needs to do a proper calibration.
So the first question before we dive into it too much is, what is Dynamic Digital Exhaust, right? What is it? So Dynamic Digital Exhaust is the decoder's ability to dynamically change the exhaust based on the work the locomotive is doing.
Right.
So it's simulating the engineer throttling up and down, or in the case of a steam engine, throttling up and down.
Right.
And the problem is that typically when you look at a DCC command, you send it and you say go speed step 10.
Right.
Well, with auto notching, it's going to notch up to notch 2 based on your notching rate. Default is 7 speed steps per transition. So when you go to speed step 10, you're essentially notch 1 is basically 1 to 7, and then 8 to 14 is notch 2.
Right.
So it stays in notch. Excuse me. Holy crap! What happened? Anyway, it stays in notch 2.
All that beef jerky.
I think it was all that beef jerky. But it stays in notch 2 regardless of what's happening, whether you're going uphill, downhill, around the corner. You got 30 cars or 2 cars.
Right.
But dynamic exhaust allows the decoder to digitally change the exhaust sounds dynamically.
Right. Yeah, it makes it like you're actually the train's under load.
Yeah.
Which it really is. I mean, realistically, the motor is under load if it's pulling 10 or 15 cars up grade. It's so the decoder's reading that off the motor, and then it's adjusting the exhaust, like George said, accordingly. How you've got it set up or calibrated, it's going to adjust the exhaust and get that feature he just had there where it's throttling up as it's backing up.
Yep.
But it's just moving like a real locomotive would, not like a jackrabbit, but like a locomotive.
Yep. So I've got some momentum, so I'll show you some screenshots here just to show you what I've got in here. So speed settings, we're going to go here. You can see I've actually got a pretty high momentum of 150 and deceleration of 225.
Right.
And the idea behind that is it takes a while for the engine to get going. So the exhaust can notch up as it's working to get going.
Right.
So it simulates the engineer throttling up to get going and then drop back once we settle into speed where we want to be.
Right.
So the engineer can get going. Because you got to remember, the engine crews are union people.
Right.
And not to knock them at all, but they want to get the job done because they're paid on the job, not the hour.
Right. They get done in a couple hours, they can go home.
Yeah, if they're paid for a 6-hour job, they do it in 3. They got 3 free hours that they're paid for.
Go get beans.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to calibrate this. So down here on the app here, you can see I've got DDE, and it'll say begin calibration. But first, before I want to jump into this and show you this, the app doing it, just briefly review what happens. So what you're doing is you're actually interrogating the power consumption of the motor through 2 speed ranges, and you're creating a chart. And this is the estimated power consumption of that motor through the chart. So at speed step 10, let's say, and I'm making up numbers, so don't read anything into it, but at speed step 10, you may be drawing 25 milliamps in the motor. And then at speed step 30, you might be drawing 50 milliamps in the motor or whatever it is. And so the decoder uses that as a baseline. So if at speed step 10, suddenly you're drawing 30 milliamps, the decoder says, oh, we're working harder. And so the exhaust is dynamically changed accordingly.
Right.
So when you're doing this, and this applies to the Tsunami2 and the Blunami. So if any of you guys are using Tsunami2, this feature is built into it, including all those factory install Athearn models, any Tsunami2 that you've had over the past, and of course Blunami. The Blunami gives you the app's ability to program it. But the way it works is you're going to program 2 CVs while the locomotive is moving. So you will be doing programming on the main. And so if you have any hesitations about that, go back and watch webinar 6 on our YouTube channel. It'll explain everything you need to know about programming on the main.
Right.
But you're going to program CV 2.503 to a value of 255 when you're moving at speed step 1, because essentially that's the nominal baseline. That's the beginning point of the current draw. So you're going to say at, speed step 1, we're drawing 5 millivolts or milliamps or whatever.
Right.
So the decoder says, okay, there's my starting point. And then rather than going into an elaborate calibration, you're basically going to do a second one at about speed step 20, 30, 40, somewhere wherever you typically run, and you create two plot points on a graph, and then the decoder creates a line, says this is the estimated power consumption.
Right.
And so whenever you need more or less power, the decoder will then change that exhaust sound based on that. And so 2.503, when you're moving at speed step 1, you'll set to 255. The decoder will interrogate the power consumption and put a value into CV 2.503 that corresponds to the measurement that it took. And then you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to be moving at speed step, like I said, 20, 30, 40, somewhere around there where you not normally run. And it'll do another calibration and enter 2.504 to 255. And then 2.504 will be set to a value that corresponds to the power consumption based on that. And that's what it's doing. And then so it uses that as a baseline reference. The decoder is, in this case, the Blunami. The app does all that for you. Now, when you're doing this, there's two big things to remember. Number one is if you have momentum into it, you may want to either take it out for the time being and reprogram it back in, or before you program that CV to 255, you want to make sure that you're moving at the given speed. Because if you don't, what happens then is you'll get a misread because the decoder thinks it's moving at speed step 10, even though the momentum is increasing to get there. But if you do that calibration, it's going to be off. So in this case, the app will remember the settings, set the momentum to 0, and then quickly do it. And we can do it in this short space. So I'm actually going to move this secondary camera over so that for those of you watching on video, you can see it. But I'm going to take this Locomotive over here. So it may be off screen on the main camera, but it's right in front of the secondary camera because it's going to need a little bit of space because it's going to book down the track for a little bit. I may not even need this much space, quite frankly. But so we'll move it about right there. I think that should be fine. So it's going to move it at speed step 1. So that's the very first, and it's going to start moving it slow. Then it's going to move it fast. And it'll move it at about, I think it's speed step 30, but it only does it for a couple of seconds. Lets the decoder get there, and then once it's there, does its calibration, brings it to a stop, and then reprograms the momentum back into it. So I don't have to sit and wait for that to accelerate, especially with my personal momentum values.
Like, and this one's got momentum set in it right now, but normally, like George said, don't turn the momentum off when you're doing this.
The other thing I forgot to mention is before you do this, make sure you have all your motor settings the way you want them. So if you're building custom speed tables, if you're playing around with the back EMF to get smooth operation with your model, do all that before you do the calibration. And the reason is because if you do the calibration and then you go around and start monkeying with the speed tables, your calibrations are going to be off. Now, you can always go back and recalibrate it, don't get me wrong. So you can recalibrate it over and over again.
On Blunami, it's a snap.
Yeah, it takes some... You're about to see how fast. But you want to make sure you have all those motor settings in there and done the way you want them to first, so that way when it does its calibration, you will get an accurate reading, and then it can use that as the baseline. So we're going to go ahead and hit begin calibration in 3, 2, 1. So now you can see the Locomotive is slowly starting to move. Now it's going to move a little faster. It is speed step 30. There you go. So it did it pretty quick, and as you can see on the screen, it's restoring the values in CV3 and 4 back to what I had. And it sets 2.503, 2.504. Now, the last one I didn't mention was 2.512, and that's a sensitivity. It determines how sensitive the decoder is going to be to changes. And normally you want to kind of play with that value to find out where that sweet spot is, because ultimately if you are too sensitive, every time you enter a curve or, encounter, let's say, an uneven rail joiner because either Tom or I can't connect the collar track, whatever the case is.
Make a speed bump.
It may change, it may start notching it up. Now, but I believe this actually sets it to, we're going to go test it real quick, just to show you. So on the screen here, you can see 503 is set to 60, even though this set it to 255. And then 504 is set to 150. So those are values that correspond to the power consumption. But down here, well, that's weird. It shows 0. Let's go ahead and set that to 25, which is what it should be. We'll have to double check that because that should have set it to 25. But you want to use a value that will work with your operation of the Locomotive. So when you're running your train, you want to set that to gives some sensitivity, but not a lot. Now 0 is off, essentially.
Right.
So now we're going to go ahead, just because I've got the space, I'm going to go ahead and move it, speed step 5 here. You see it's slowly accelerating. Now once it gets to speed, you'll hear that prime mover kind of notch down. But now when I put my hand on it to simulate the work the engine might be doing, say going uphill,
Yep.
you now hear it get louder as it's working against my hand. And then when I release, you can hear that prime mover back off and drop back down.
See, you don't have to sit there and twist the knob.
Yeah, you don't have to do
lock
that.
you don't have to lock your throttle, twist your knob, and forget what speed step you're on, because
Yeah, exactly.
this thing does it like it's supposed
Yep,
to.
it'll do all the hard work for you.
Yeah.
So the other thing is I did want to point out, now when it comes to the settings, I'm going to go here to main sounds, and because this is one of the key factors, in my opinion, is you see here on the screen, you see engine notch rate, and that's set in CV114,
Right.
but here in the app you can see it right there. You can see I have RPM increase every 15 speed steps.
Yep.
What that does is that it takes the transition points and basically spreads them apart, wider across the table, so that way your transitions are a little bit farther apart, but it gives a better experience, because now and then, like say for example you have two locomotives, they bump together, you're not having them notching in and out of sequence because your transition points are a little farther.
Right. It makes a difference.
It makes a bit of difference. Now you can leave it at 7 speed steps, which again is the default like we talked about earlier, but you can go in and adjust this to be about 15 speed steps. That's what I like.
Yeah.
And it's what's recommended by our engineers to get the best experience. But you certainly can play with it and find out what you like. Experiment with it. And again, with the app, you can just click this and scroll through the list. And basically, you have every 1 to 15 speed steps. And you can see that the 15 speed steps is grayed out here. And so that's just, those are the things that I really recommend that you play with and try to really dial in that dynamic exhaust, because this really is a cool feature. It really is a lot of fun to hear your engines working that way while you're running at speed. I tell you what, it's a lot of fun, and a lot of people turn heads on it.
It's really it's a great feature, and it's one of the things that when I used the Tsunami2 came out, it was one of the things that immediately dived into, and like, wow. So now a competitor. Before I was just me,
Right.
I chose the SoundTraxx decoder because of not just the motor control, but that feature right there, because that gave me what I wanted with like George's got this non-turbo, that sound you get when those things throttle up is just like music.
It is.
It's just awesome stuff, and the SoundTraxx decoder will do it for you. You don't have to lock your throttle, turn your knobs and stuff back and forth on your throttle if you're using the throttle, which back then we didn't have Blunami.
Right.
And guys would forget what speed step they're on with that other decoder.
Right.
And then when they unlocked the throttle, they undid function 9 or whatever it was, that the engine would just take off.
Yep.
Whereas this thing, right from the get-go, you're running it, it's running just like it's supposed to. Like, as our buddy Kevin Love would say, okay, hoghead, don't spill the coffee. So...
Well, and you can see here on the screenshot, we still have RPM plus and minus.
Yeah.
So if you still want to manually override,
You
you're
can.
still there, accessible.
And you still got F10, which is straight to
Straight to 8. Yep.
You can do that too. Pump her all the way up to notch 8 and just take off nice and slow, and that'll work too.
Yep. Now, one of the other things, and maybe we should save this for another topic, or maybe another time we'll talk about it, but the MOPAC used power braking.
Yep.
And the F10 can be used in that.
Right.
So if you know how to do that, put that in the comments below, and then we'll cover it in another podcast.
I mean, we know Kevin knows how to do it.
We know Kevin knows how to do it.
In the real world. Hi, Kev.
But anyway, any other closing thoughts on the dynamic exhaust? Anything
Just
you're
awesome.
seeing a common questions?
I like the 15 speed step. That's what I use. I use the recommendation. George recommended it to me several years ago when when we were talking just Tsunami2 at that time, and then
Yep.
Blunami. But I agree with the engineers because they designed the thing. It works great like that, especially in multiple unit consists. It works great.
Yep. Perfect. Well, if you have any comments or thoughts, questions about dynamic exhaust, feel free to reach out to both of us. Support SoundTraxx.com. They'll primarily go to him. If he can't answer it, we'll discuss and make sure we get an answer.
Some of you guys are really good too. I've been here lately. I've been doing really good. I've been on a roll, and a couple of questions wow. I'm gonna have to ask George.
Well, we're getting you there.
Yeah,
we're almost there.
I'm getting there, but it's still fun because I still learn something new. So it
Yeah.
doesn't bother me to get stumped. So don't take it that way. It's just, I like to learn something like that, so it's very interesting.
Yep.
And it's great to have a resource with you. You know, the walking encyclopedia here so of DCC and SoundTraxx.
Yep. Well, there you go. Well, guys, I think that's everything we got covered on our topics today. I know we try to keep these fairly short, so they're listenable and not overwhelm you with 2.5 hours worth of discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Or talk about stuff that's not related to trains, like baseball and selling cups and that have SoundTraxx on.
So, but anyway, that's everything we got for you planned this week. So, with that, we'll look to see you guys next time. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments below. Let us know. Make sure to give us a thumbs up, and be sure to follow the channel and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified anytime a new video drops. And you'll get a notification from YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And with that, we're here to help you guys. Phone call or an email away.
Yep, we're here. We appreciate your call and your support of our products, and at the same time, we want you to enjoy them.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye now.